Well, good evening, and welcome back to our YOMO, the Year of Magical Learning podcast. Today, we try something different. We're talking about, yesterday, we talking about inspirations. Along that line, we want to go down another path in the back of inspirations, but we talk about mindset. So let's talk about what Chris has in mind as far as what mindset we want to talk about.
Yeah, so today we're going to be talking about book 166. It's called The Infinite Game by Simon Sinek. And, we've done other Simon Sinek's book, right? I think we did start with
We
Why
just start with
already.
why.
I think he's only written three. I think he's written three books. So this is his third book, I believe, his most recent book. And then I want to say maybe his second book was Leaders Eat Last, which I actually read that one. I really liked that one too. It was probably about a month ago, honestly, at this point in time that I read that one. So Simon Sinek is, he's a good, I like him. I actually like his writing. The funny thing is I think I like Adam Grant as a person more than I like Simon Sinek. And I like Adam Grant when he's just talking off the cuff more than I like Simon Sinek. But I like Simon Sinek's writing a little bit better. I think it's a little bit clearer. If I didn't know the two personalities of the people in general, I probably would enjoy Simon Sinek's thought philosophies in life and stuff like that. I feel like they're more well-defined and clear and concise than Adams sometimes. But either way,
he's more of the beaver must damn professor, and then the other professor of trying to be a professor when you're a lion or something else.
Right. Well, Adams.
That's what I'm saying is this is the beaver must damn because
right,
ability to, just like Brew Bryson, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he has this natural ability to take things and make it clear. You're talking about taking the complexity of physics and teach somebody who is a kid, a teenager, they can understand. Right. Simon Sinek, that's who you are, and when you do what you are, it seems easy because you have the faculty to do that.
Yeah, I agree.
Adam Grant, maybe he may be in the profession, but he's more a philosopher in a way.
And he's a professor.
But a professor is I say, that's his thing, his job.
Right.
But naturally, like, let's say, if you don't get paid for it, what do you do? It's who you are. Think about it. If you say, well, most of the things I like to do, I don't get paid for. And what I do, I get paid for, I don't really like. I can endure it, but I don't really like. And so not a lot of people have the what we were talking about this before. It's talking about like having your what was it, your purpose, right?
Mm-hmm.
Your purpose plus we talked about this like a couple of weeks ago. You need to have them both to be happy because
meaningful relationships.
No, we're talking about like you stumble on you beavering by accident. Right. So the thing is, if you beaver by accident, meaning like you go and you stumble on something and you're happy that you're in this river and you're making a dam, but certainly you don't really know your purpose.
Yeah.
And then what happens is after the dams, the river dries out, you get lost because you have no idea where to go find another thing.
It was Rocket Men. That was what we were talking about. Beavering on accident versus beavering on purpose. You can both get there and you can be very happy while you're beavering, but you don't like you're like.
But the problem is once something happens to your dam, right?
Right.
You get lost because you don't know what you're looking for.
Or you finish your dam, Actually, that's a good segue into this reflection because it's funny. You actually, while you were saying that, I have never read this book yet, but I've always been kind of leery of it, but I kind of want to read it. Maybe it's by Ben Horowitz, the guy that wrote The Hard Things About Hard Things. And his latest book was What You Do Is Who You Are, and I don't know.
I mean, for me, I think who you are is what you do. You should be doing.
Yeah, fair enough. I'm kind of curious to maybe dig into this book to kind of learn what he means by that, because that's a similar sentiment.
You do is who you are. No, who you are is what you do.
That was one of the reflections earlier. Remember, was do the opposite. Whenever somebody says do something, do the complete opposite of it. Because whenever everybody's going in one direction,
what company is. If we are going against the grain of society, we're telling people like, hey, your job isn't what you want. You cannot separate the professional man from the personal man, and we're going against the grain. We say, look, you need to be more chimps than bees, and society tells you to be more bees. So hey, do what we tell you to do what everybody does.
All good points, and I definitely have a lot of we could go down this tangent forever because I totally agree with you, but I want to start already going down that road. You got me thinking that way, but I'm gonna pump the brakes and we're gonna go back to the
Sorry.
Because you're beavering on accident versus beavering on purpose is a great segue into this one. So this book is about infinite games. It's games that don't end, right? Like marriage is an infinite game, business is an infinite game. It's games, it's a wicked environment, right? We've talked about wicked environments versus kind environments. Kind environments produce finite games. There's a winner, there's a loser, there's clearly defined rules. Wicked games produce are infinite games. There is no winner, there is no loser.
Both win and you can both lose.
Exactly. Like Darren Hardy and his real estate mogul friend of his father's or whatever, when he was dying, he was like, don't miss the point. If you play infinite games like a finite game, you're missing the point, right? It's not, you're not in business to dominate the world, to be Jeff Bezos or whatever. Like, that's not why you do it. If that is why you do it, you're going to get to the end of your life and you're going to go, I missed the point. That's the point of this book, is to kind of shift your mindset around, the difference between finite games and having a just cause and committing to a vision, that helps the world and impacts things that's bigger than you. It's things that'll continue to go on after you are here. And it's, for me, like, this book was very business focused, like what a lot of Simon's writings are about, but but the concept is applicable to all areas of life, in my opinion. And it made me, reflect on kind of beavering on accident. So when I was, before this whole journey began, like, I've always loved finite games, like, loved them. Like, I mean, I am like, you put me into any competitive situation and my beaver just stamps, right? Like, I'm like, yeah, I'm in. I mean, I get really excited. I'm locked in. I'm focused. I will not stop, whether it was, I'm talking about anything. It could be as dumb as my friend and I out on a beach and we get the little wave runner ball that skips across the waves. And we somehow turn it into a dumbass game of, who can skip the most and not catch the ball, and catch the ball still 10 out of 10 times or what. I don't know. It doesn't even matter. Like, we will invent dumb games to go and, just to compete for dumbest, stupidest reasons ever. That is how I beaver.
That's who you are.
It's all right. And my whole entire life, though, like, I've always been the most engaged whenever I'm, playing pickleball or cornhole. I used to be really good at cornhole. Anybody that goes, what cornhole is? The bags, the game, it's on ESPN now. Like, I mean, anybody that used to play me, they were like, oh God, I don't want to play Chris. I didn't train or anything, but I definitely played enough cornhole back in college. It comes back to me. It's like riding a bike, most of the time, I'm almost to the point in time where I could probably go play on a pro tour if I really wanted to spend my time doing it or something along those lines. I'm not saying that I'm that good. I'm saying that I could very easily. I'm like on that, where people are like, Jesus Christ, why is he so good at this stupid thing? And I don't know. I don't know what it is. I get obsessed with things and I just, it just is, my beaver comes out when I do that stuff, right? That sounds weird. I heard that. So my point that I'm trying to make is I love finite games a lot. Actually, it got me in trouble important times in my career because, like, poker took me down a bad rabbit hole. I don't want to say addicted to gambling. I was addicted to poker because it's such a challenge. I loved the challenge of trying to read people and trying to make the right play. The money was kind of irrelevant. I didn't really ever play to make money or to lose money, but when money's at stake, and I was really young, I don't gamble anymore because that was one of my beavering activities that I was like, I'm glad I recognized this early. I was like, this is not a good beavering activity, Chris. And I shut it down. Have not gambled in at least a decade. I just was like, I can't do this anymore. I was like, I can't even play with my friends. Like, I can't, like, I don't want to play poker anymore. All right, I digress. So my whole life, really beavering on accident and finite games. But after Amelia, like, there was this dramatic shift in how my values were applied to different things. And the infinite game kind of concept was a big mind shift for me. And that's what our infinite game is that we're talking about today. We talk about it every single day now. We talk about it. I write about it every day. We talk about it every day. I live it every day. You live it every day. Our infinite game is Clubany, right? And this is us seeking to find balance in our life by performing as many actions as we can that relate to our values that we say that matter the most to us in the world, right? Like, that is it. That is the infinite game. There is no winner or loser. There is no scoreboard. There is no whatever. But I also know that this is a game that we can not only play ourselves, but this is a game that we can bring others in. We can build meaningful work around it. We can build meaningful relationships around it. We can build a culture around it. And, that's what we're doing. That was what this idea started as when I first came to you after I was kind of emerging from, the rubble of my life after my daughter, was taken from our family and spent a lot of time just kind of searching for what the hell I wanted to do with life. Right. And I mean, obviously, this because you're a part of the whole story, around, I don't know, I guess it was like 5 months, after my daughter had passed away that I was out there searching for people to play this infinite game with me. We came across each other and we found each other. And that was how this whole thing started. That was how Yomo eventually started. That was how Any other things that we eventually started going for it is because this is an infinite game. We're almost 3 years into this whole thing, or 2.5 years, I guess, at this point in time, or whatever you want to call it. And there's no end in sight. Like, we don't have any L10 meetings anymore. We don't have any quarterly rocks and quotas. It is literally just do what you want to do, beaver on purpose. Instead of beavering on accident, it is now beavering on purpose in an infinite game that we can play forever. And who knows where that takes us, but that's kind of the whole point of the infinite game, right? So that's the reflection for the day. That's my infinite game. I have a feeling that's your infinite game as well, but maybe it's not. I don't know. So that's the question. What's your infinite game? And what's your thoughts on finite games versus infinite games in general? And beavering on accident versus beavering on purpose. That's why I said it was a great segue to this idea, right?
Right. The thing to me is, I think you and I are on the same wavelength when we talk about the infinite game. But I want to make sure that kind of reword what the infinite game is. So the infinite game for both of us is life.
Yeah.
Right. It's life. Life that is good. Life that is not missing the point.
Right.
Not missing the point. Life with minimal regrets. This is what clubbing is about. Clubbing is about you figuring out what your purpose are and beaver on purpose. And not by accident, because you want life
with other beavers. Or with other animals, not just beavers, but with other
whatever that purpose. I mean, it includes anything that will help you get the most optimal experience out of life.
You could be slothing on purpose. You could be lining on purpose. You can owl on purpose. Eagling on purpose.
Eagling, lining, cheating, or however you want to call yourself. And that's the thing. It's about that aspect of life, and because life is very dynamic and fluid. A finite game doesn't correlate. It doesn't correlate to what we have that is important to us. You can say, well, I can win in the game of cornhole. I can win in the game of tennis. I can win in the game of football. But how can I win in the game of life? Right? And I can leave life today. I can leave life tomorrow. I might even wake up tomorrow. Right? That's the thing, is we don't know any of these. We don't know shit. I don't know shit. You don't know shit. But the thing is, we know whether or not when we do something, it makes us feel alive or it doesn't.
Right.
We take a finite game. So I think having a finite games is okay, but don't take it and apply it to your life. I said, hey, you be competitive, but then if you extrapolate the finite games to your life, right? You think about, okay, I'm going to do certain things and it's going to end. You think why do you want your life to end? I mean, we talked about the book yesterday. We're talking about inspiration, right? Why would Luis wants to endure all these torture and continue on living, right? Because you don't want to end.
Right.
Anything that you want, anything that's good for you, like if you're beavering and you're having a good time, why would you want it to end? That's what I'm saying is when you look,
the guys going to the moon didn't want that journey to end. But it didn't want to end. That was the beavering on accident versus beavering on purpose, right? That's what I was saying, is you're not a tennis player. Like, you are somebody that loves to express your values, and tennis is a chosen activity that you are doing that in. And then if that ends, if that gets taken from you, you still have the values to go apply to other places. Like, it's not, that is not your identity. I'm not an astronaut. I am a guy that loves to explore, that likes to answer questions, to problem solve. And then
that's the thing, is it's all that perspectives. The perspective means everything. Just like I told you before, if you think you can't, you're right. If you think you can't, right, you're also right. Because the thing is, we're talking about yesterday we're talking about the guy, right? He doesn't think that this is beyond his ability to endure, because he thinks that way. He will endure. If he thinks he couldn't, then he will give up. He will die
that day.
Perspective. The perspective makes a huge difference. The same thing we were talking about is, when you look at this perspective of a infinite game versus a finite game, and the thing is, most people, when they think about life and everything else, they always use the finite games as a model.
Yeah.
And that
goals, and let's set our OKRs and our KPIs and our goals,
achievements and this and that. And that's basically lead them astray from
does,
what is really makes them happy, right? That's what I'm saying is, what is your favorite day of the week?
When you beaver,
Everybody,
you're,
majority of people say Friday. Which one is more happy, make you more happier,
well, it
right?
depends on your perspective, I guess. I
That's the
mean,
perspective. But I'm saying is the majority of the people, like I say, company, it's going against what everybody does.
mhm,
Right? We're talking about, okay, everybody's using the Finite game as a model for everything they do. I have a tennis match, I have a football game. What's the beginning? What's the end? What's the goal? What's the outcome I want? How you want to win? And you take that and you extrapolate to everything you do in life, whether or not, hey, working. You want to wait until it ends or to get it to Friday. You say, well, I'm going to build a business. And I'm in this business, I'm going to win because somebody has to lose. But you
right.
think about it, in business, it's not about whether you win and somebody lose. It's about you could both win. Because
Yeah.
if you
Grow the
build
pie.
something
Yeah.
that builds value for each one of you, right? You both gain better quality of life, better things, whatever. So the finite games concept and rules, right? The
Doesn't
game
apply
of
to
life.
life. It doesn't apply to anything in life. Like, I mean, there is nothing. These are human constructs of games that we play. Conscious living is something that you and I have talked about. It's funny because I'm
Mm-hmm.
reading this book right now called Conscious Business, which
Right.
is it's kind of actually interesting because it's like basically conscious living in a business setting, which
Right.
is kind of what we're talking about with Club anyway in general. But it's like taking business completely out of it. But at the end of the day, what I was gonna say is like for me, what conscious living is like it's the difference between the DNA and the human being. Like conscious living is dissecting the actions that you do down to the values, the DNA of why you do it, right?
Mm-hmm.
The goal is, to pass your DNA on, right? Like the goal is to pass your values on. The goal is to continue to always express your values out there into the world. And as you do that, like you find fulfillment and you can beaver on purpose. And there is no end game of the human formation. Think if DNA was like, oh, my goal is just
I mean, what is the goal of humanity? Hey, we are going to be able to get to the point where we're gonna do, you know, galaxy travel or whatever you want to call it. Then what? What's next? That's the thing is, if you take any game that we construct as human being and apply to life, it applies to the lineage of human history, right? You
Mhm.
think about all the things you have to do to get to the point where where are we going, right? Where we came from and where we're going, we don't know.
Right.
But that's the thing is, if you do, then you will have a limited mindset of what you can and will do. Because if you don't have an endpoint, that means that you open up all of your faculties to be as creative as you can. You can
Yeah.
be, you say, well, the thing is, my
And you
brain is
don't
only this
care.
size, right? But the thing is, if you say, well, my brain can be only this size, if you take that as a mindset, like we said yesterday, if you agree to constrain that mindset will constrain. Then you cannot be bigger, you cannot be smaller, you cannot be lighter, cannot be faster, because you told yourself that that's all I can do. Same thing, we go back to a way earlier a topic. We're talking about the guy who broke the 4 minute miles. Because everybody's limitation is, it is impossible for human beings to run below a 4 minute mile. But then that's the limitation, and no one broke it for the longest time until it's one guy with some crazy idea broke it, and then months after, other people broke his record, right? You think about the time when I told you about Navy SEALs, they can hold their breath for 6 minutes or longer. And you say, well, that's impossible, right? Because the limitations of our
I actually thought he
mindset,
died.
yeah, because
No, I
that's
mean,
the thing.
I'm not joking. I actually literally thought like you died of like because I heard if you didn't have oxygen for 4 minutes, your brain, I think you're dead, right? Like, so that's what I was thinking of.
Yeah, it's a yes and a no, because if I do it, I don't want to tell you how long you can hold your breath. If I do it for 6 minutes, yes, I will die because I wasn't trained for it. Okay,
Right.
my body is not adapted to it. But the thing is, if we take the construct of what we have as this is the beginning and this is the end, this is the box that we are put into, then you can only be inside the box. Then you cannot be outside that, be beyond that, because you constrain yourself already in the mind. Therefore, you cannot go beyond that, and that's the key. If you say, "Well, I don't want to be inside the box. I don't want to be," because like I told you yesterday, right? We say, "Well, we can't live forever." if you told yourself you can't live forever, then you won't. 100% of the time, you won't. But if you say, right, that, it's possible, then you're going to let your brain do its work, be creative, and say, well, maybe I can find some kind of a tree or some kind of animals or some kind of a new inventions that allows me to regenerate my organs or replace organs or grow organs out from trees or absorb or whatever. It allows you to be creative. It unlimits you, break the box. And that to me is what the Infinite Game is about, is breaking that box, the mental constraint and mental construct of what we made out. Because all of the finite games say, hey, this is the rules, right? It's very, very defined. And if you do that, you always will be inside of that box. And we take that as a model for everything we do. So you think that, hey, I cannot be this, then you won't. You cannot hold my breath for more than 2 minutes, then you won't. You cannot run past 4-minute mile, then you won't.
True. That's what I wrote my book about. That was what I Can't Imagine it's about. I mean, is Amelia here with us in this conversation? In my opinion, she is. She's the only reason why we're having this conversation. That doesn't mean that she's not here. That doesn't mean that we can't still have a relationship.
If you tell yourself that she's not here, you're telling yourself that. Because the thing is, if I ask you this, right? We exist, right? Right now, you and me, we have a physical body. But that physical body is only a manifestation of a 3-dimensional, 4-dimension. You're talking about the three spatial and the time, right? And even the time isn't like, and you're talking about another dimension, right? How do you manifest a 5th dimension?
I don't know. I mean,
because it's completely out of that particular context. Right. If we know for a fact that we have 3 dimension, and then we found that we have another dimension called time. That's the 4th dimension. And then we have many other theory about like 27 other dimensions, right? We know there are more dimensions, but the manifestations of the dimensions were different. And I'll give you an example. If you are on a 2-dimensional plane, right? You have one flat plane, you have X and Y. You have a circle, right, on there, right? That's basically a circle. If you add a 3-dimensional, which you have the altitude, right? Right? Then what would the object looks like in a 3-dimensional world? It's a sphere.
Right.
Because that example tells you that because you're in a different dimension, your manifestation is different.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
There's 4th dimension, where that 4th dimension is still on a 3-dimensional, but it moves across the time. And then you have a 5th dimension. So your manifestation in each dimension cannot be the same. So you can't say, well, I can't see my daughter, so she's not here. That just means she's not inside of this dimension, the dimension that you or I are constrained within today. But that doesn't mean that she cannot be in the other dimension that you also be in. That's why we talk about the mystery of the universe, right? There's other dimensions that because of that, you're still there in other dimensions. But that in this dimension is not. Because if I were to go to, let's say that there's a spot, maybe there's a bus stop or whatever. I go to that place, right? Chris is not here. Does that mean Chris didn't exist? No, just because I was there at the wrong time. It's not at the same time you are, right? That means that the 4th dimension is in action. So we're talking about 5th dimension. Extrapolate that and think about that for a second. So whatever you say and say, well, my daughter is with me, to me, that is not far-fetched. And if you think you're crazy for thinking that your daughter is not with you and you're just in your head, right? You will be right. If you think your daughter is with you, and is that there's other mysteries, other dimensions, you will also be right.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. I mean, this goes back to like reflection 2 of our imagination is our superpower from Sapiens, right? Like, I mean, this is what you just said. The words that just came out of your mouth were all pure imagination, but that doesn't mean that in a negative way. Like, I mean,
But I just give you an example of the 2nd dimension to the 3rd dimension to the 4th dimension, right?
Because
the thing is, you think about it, we live in these dimensions, we can exist in this dimension, but I'm saying is, if we have the same 3 dimension, But the fourth dimension is not there. That means that when I go to a certain point on that particular plane, on the place on this planet, right? You can exist there at a different time. So when I go to that place, I won't see you. So when you say you can't see your daughter, it's not because she's not there or she doesn't exist. It's just because she's in a different time. If you take that fourth dimension as an example, it's a different time. So, you know what I mean? Because you're at one spot, she's at another exactly the same spot. But if you're talking about in the fourth dimension, right? You're not going to see her unless you're both at the same fourth dimension point. So it's the time element.
No, I understand conceptually what you're saying, and that's the beauty of communication. When I was saying that that's your imagination at work, I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean that in a good way, because you're trying to build a construct where we can make sense of multiple different. That's the beauty of humanity. Like, as I said, our imagination is our superpower. I can be here with my daughter if I want to be, and I don't think that's the same physical reality of a deer, like if the deer lost her mother, then the deer lost her mother. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to say for sure because I don't know, because maybe they have their own communication language, maybe their own philosophies, but at the same time, like, that's not known to us at this point in time. So I don't think that's the case, but then again, I don't know anything. But my point of what I was getting at is that is the beauty of this whole entire journey, is like that is an infinite game. An infinite game is whatever you want it to be. It's whatever you want to dream it up to be. It's however you want to make sense of the world around you to live a fulfilling life.
Infinite just means dynamic, and it's not constrained to what we think and what we used to see.
Right.
And that's the thing is, we are always using such a limitation as a model for all the things we do, and that limits us. We constrain ourselves. We say, hey, we can only be inside of this box. We can only be inside this house. We can say, well, I cannot go beyond the earth, for example. Even if you expand to that level, then you were never ever going to have space travel, because you told yourself you can't. You say, well, there is no such thing as communicating with my daughter. Certain things that you do, you think Amelia is watching you over from heaven, whatever you want to call it. And there's like things that you did, or things that you say, well, basically you go to the cemetery and visit her and you talk to yourself, right? Talking to yourself and having her at that presence changes the way you think, right? This could be one of the ways that she communicates with you. And that's in the other dimension, that wherever you have that cross of the connection, right? The connection, like I'm saying, is the connection
of the shared values. I mean, it's when I do the stuff that she cares about and we do it together across dimensions. Like, that's when I know that we're
right
communicating.
Because that's why I'm asking you back. If I were to go and meet you and shake your hands, what must happen?
I don't know the answer to that. I mean, what? I mean,
these two dimension has to connect. The 3D has to connect, and the fourth dimension has to connect. Because if I go there at 8 a.m. and you get there at 9 a.m., can we meet? Can we talk to each other?
Are you still there? Did you stay?
No,
I'm kidding.
At times moves, right? At times move because that's what I'm saying is the dimensions that we have. Let's say you want to have a connection, right? Wherever you in those dimensions, it has to connect and coincide. If it doesn't, then it's not, because, like I say, if I can go to the same two-dimensional plane, same three-dimensional plane, but not the fourth dimension, like I can say, I can come out and go there at 8, but then you're not there because you go there at 9.
Right.
Then we don't meet because the fourth dimension doesn't happen, right? So the second dimension has to happen, right? That means that the second dimension has to happen. The third dimension has to happen, because you could be, on the second floor. I could be on the 5th floor, right? That's the third dimension,
right?
Because if I'm above you, then how can we meet if we're above you? Right. It has to be connecting at a single coincide point in those dimensions, including the time dimension, in order for us to meet and shake hands and talk to each other in that dimension. And then we're talking about all these videos and all that. That's becoming a construct of the time dimension, right? And then you think about, let's say we add another dimension. What would that be?
Like a hologram. Right? You put somebody in the room next to you, like on video.
That is not what you and I see. Because if you see a hologram, you are projecting a 3-dimensional or 4th dimension inside, taking a 5th dimension and kind of constrain them into. So you're basically trying to box the 5th dimension into a 4th dimension that you can understand. That's what a hologram is.
Right.
But it's not, because if you think that way, then you'd be wrong, because you basically throw away the rest of the characteristics and properties of the 5th dimension by taking it and put it into what you see. You have to understand that what you see, right, your eyes can only process the 3rd dimension, right? The 4th dimension is a construct that we can understand, but cannot see, because I can understand about the, you being there at 8 a.m. and I can be there at 9 a.m. and vice versa and whatnot. We can understand it, but we can't see that. You cannot see the 4th dimension, right? The 5th dimension is even more exaggerated in that complexity.
Trust me, I get it.
Be in the 5th dimension and can talk to you in a coincidence of 5 dimensions together. It means that whatever you receive from her is not what you think you receive from her.
Right. I understand where you're going with this, and I don't disagree at all. I think that summing it down for me, or like dumbing it down back to taking a broad abstract concept like that and moving that back into something that everyone can relate to, is, the responsible, right? Like, I mean, I was given something, and you can say this is the reality, or you can say this is not the reality. How can I change that? That's up to you. That's what we are able to do, is to say, do I want to accept this? And the answer to that should always be no. If somebody tells you something is, it should always be, I don't accept that. You should always want to go look for a different alternative.
Right.
That's the point. Is like, that is the infinite game. There's always something more to discover, something new to learn, another way to express yourself, another way to find a way, right? Like, that's how life goes on. Like we were talking about yesterday. Like there's always another way. Luca, my son, is officially going to daycare now. He's had a nanny in our home for the first year and a half of his life. My wife was actually working at home with me because she was starting a charter school, and the school hadn't actually started. They were doing all the prep work and the building and the curriculum design, so she was able to work at home. Now she's a principal at the charter school they founded, so she's out of the home every single day. Our nanny got pregnant, and she's due in a month, so she is officially checked out. As of today was her last day, technically, and we've been slowly breaking Luca into daycare by going like 3 days a week. During those 3 days a week, like, it's throwing me through a loop, because I'm writing these reflections every single morning, but now I've been given a time constraint of I gotta get all my thoughts out, my creativity juices flowing. I gotta be at my computer by this time to be able to get done by this time to be able to get done by. I'm running for a lot of trains, basically, and it's been throwing me through a whole lot of loops. And every single day I keep sitting there and going, that doesn't have to be the reality. I was like, what is another path? Can I hire somebody to be here for an hour in the morning just to give me an hour to continue to write and be creative or whatever? Sure, I could do that. Like I thought of like 30 different other things that I could do. I could, instead of fucking surfing on my phone for 15 minutes after my alarm clock goes off, I could just get up 15 minutes earlier and get to fucking work on things that I actually care about, versus scrolling through Yahoo News or whatever. Hey, there's an extra 15-20 minutes I could buy back some time right there. You know what I mean? Like, anyway, my point is like, there's always a different path, and that's like a really simple example. Well, that's it. This is what it is. I just got to accept it, and that's the absolute wrong way to ever think. That's when you get killed. That's like we talked about yesterday. That's when your mindset, when you've given in, like when you've smoked your last cigarette, when you're like, well, I'm going to keep writing because I want a beaver. This is important for me. This makes me feel good, and this helps me to share the elixir with other people. This helps me to play my infinite game with you. I will find another way. Like, it's not going to stop me. I could have easily had a different mindset and just been like, all right, I just got to give this up for a while. I'll come back to it in a few months. I was actually writing about that this morning. I was like, I'm not going to do this. This is a marathon. I love doing this stuff. I got to figure out another path. In a nutshell, I feel like is a good example as to what we're kind of talking about in a broader, more abstract terms. But this is like a very small, condensed, tiny little problem that could turn into a major problem for some people, but I'm not going to let it because it's not a big deal. We'll just figure it out.
To me, today's lessons for me is that don't limit your thinking. Just don't do it. And a lot of what you see today is conditions for us to be limited. So unlimit yourself, unlimit your thinking. If you can unlimit your thinking, you can say, well, I can do what Elon does. I can do what Jeff Bezos does. Because they say, you're talking about all of the guys have done anything great because they unlimit their thinking. You look at the Wright brothers, right? Human can't fly. We don't have wings. You didn't stop the Wright brothers.
Watch me. Yeah, right. Like,
because that's the thing is you have to unlimit your thinking. If you limit your thinking, and 90% of the things you see around you will condition you to limit yourself. You say, well, I can't make that money. I can't be this. I can't be that. Whatever it is, right?
You can't start a business without having a what to go start first before you start the business.
It's the bottom. If you can take one thing out of this talk, it's about your thinking. Unlimit your thinking, because that allows your brains to work. Because if you tell your brain that I'm not going to think about it, then you won't, right?
Or think about something different. Find a different path. I mean, like, okay, this is the fact. Find a different path. Like, it is what it is. What else can you do, you know?
But that's the thing is that's the first step, though, because the other steps, the steps after you unlimit self, comes naturally. Because if you tell yourself there is no definitive ways to do things, then your brain's going to automatically say, okay, that means that I can try anything, right? Yeah, you can. That's what your brain is saying to itself. Because you are the rider, and you tell an elephant that, hey, you can go anywhere you want, right? Then it will say, oh, I'm going to see what happens. If you tell them can only go forward, then it can only go, and it will only go forward, right? That's the thing is anything else you do, your brain will automatically pick up something. We cannot stay still. Right. But that's the thing is once you take the box away, then there's no telling which direction your brains want to go. But if you put in a box, then the only thing it does exactly what you told it to do.
But there is one box you should always stay in, though, and that is the box of your values, if you can. Like, don't be unopposed to experiencing new values, but like guiding your beaver on purpose is what I was getting at.
That's what I'm saying is you're gonna have these guidance or these sensors, right? Right. When you beaver an accident, you feel alive, right? You feel good, right? And you feel like great. This is what life is supposed to be. You are through at it, and you are beavering on purpose as well. And once you find your purpose, because if you don't know your purpose, and if you don't, then you have to explore. You're gonna have to say, well, I'm gonna do this. How does it make me feel? I'm gonna do that. How does it make me feel? If I put my hands on a hot stove, well, how does that make me feel?
Probably not good. Well, maybe you like it. I don't know. Maybe you're the person that's like walks on hot coals or some shit like that, and you're like, and people are like, why do you do that? Well, I don't know. I mean, you're like Wim Hof. You're like, hey, I'm gonna go jump into a cold water bath every single day, and people were like, exactly. Why the hell do you do that?
That's exactly what I'm saying. It's because you have to explore to find out who you are, what kind of beaver, if you're a beaver or not, and you beaver on purpose. That's the exploration. But if you tell yourself, hey, I cannot be that, I cannot be this, then you won't. Bottom line. So you have to unlimit your thinking to unlimit yourself. Make that any clearer.
I mean, we're unlimited right now. We've been building a business that hasn't produced a single fucking dollar for 2.5 years, and we meet every single night. Like, I swear to God, if we told anybody that, they'd be like,
they limit themselves.
You're in the wrong business, buddy. And I'm gonna be like, no, you're in the wrong business.
No, I'm in the business of life. Right, why do you? Why do you work? Right? Why do you work? Right? Why do you build business?
Man, I'll tell you what, I've not been having, besides when we get to talk with you and the stuff that we did with like the core values quest and other things that we've done with clubbing activities, I have not had more fun at work than applying these principles to my new team. It's a blast. I mean, I am having a great time. And I don't care if they fired me tomorrow. I'm going to be like, man, I learned so much from this. Like, I've already, advanced the mission a ton, and I've been beavering on purpose every single day, and I'm having a freaking blast. Like, yeah, it's tiring.
You can tell by the enthusiasm of you and me at 9:30, 8:30 at night. Right. After a long
I'm tired,
with all the societies, dogma, right? You're exhausted by the end of the day. And then we get on here like at the end of the day, and we have so much energy when you're talking about this.
Yeah, it's engaging. Like, I mean,
right? This is your experience.
I'm sick and tired right now, right at this moment. Like, you wouldn't know it, right? I mean, I am literally sick because of Luca and his daycare crap and whatever. But, I am legitimately sick and tired right in this moment. As soon as we get off this call, I'm going to go to bed because I'm exhausted. But to your point, I'm not exhausted right this second.
I mean, it's hard to fake that. I mean, how can you fake like real enjoyment and real to me, that's what life is about. And like whatever you do, it's like here. You think about like, let's say a beaver goes into the water. He has a nice life, positive experience, and he goes into the desert. He have a very bad experience because his pelt is gonna make him heat up, and he's gonna be hot, and he doesn't like it. He goes into water. He loves it, right? That's what it is. When you do your purpose, that's how you feel. And this is the game of life. The game of life is about how can you maximize your life without missing the point at the end of whatever.
Right.
You're missing the point. It's not about this and not about that. It's about, okay, what is the most memorable and a memory that I can collect over the existence I have here on Earth?
Yeah. Life is an infinite game. I mean, that's the bottom line, I mean, it's what it is. Awesome. All right. Well, we are officially out of time, and I am sick, and I am sick and tired, True. All right. But for everybody else, I'd love to hear about what's your infinite game, and thanks for joining us.
It should be the same thing. It should be the same as ours, because if you think about it, and
but it's still
hated by people,
it's still purpose-driven life. So I mean, like that's the infinite game, is a purpose-driven life. But you can whatever that purpose.
My infinite game is to be a battery and be a slave for people. You think about what I just said. Who does things like that?
So I don't know. Like, I would just say it's a purpose-driven life, and beavering on purpose is the infinite game.
So the thing is, who on Earth, when they were born, wants to die right away?
I assume no one.
My point exactly.
Right.
Because we have the genes that wants to live, right? So that's what I'm saying is, we born into this world, we want to live. No one has ever said no to life until they've gone to the point where they're depressed and all that, because the pain and suffering outweighs the want to live. But if you don't have any pain and suffering, who say, okay, I'm gonna die today? That's my life. That's my purpose. That's what I'm saying is, no one ever
Jesus did.
ever said that. No, Jesus wants to live.
No, he died on. Yeah, I know, but he died on purpose, for purpose.
But doesn't mean that he doesn't want to live. My point is,
I agree.
Everybody wants to have a purpose in life, right? And that purpose, so the thing is, dying wasn't his purpose. Saving you and saving me was his purpose. And the way for him to do that is for him to take the punishment for what we did.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you ask me, Jesus died on purpose. No, he didn't die on purpose.
He died for a purpose.
Exactly. Die for a purpose, not on purpose.
And that's what everybody should die for, is die for a purpose. That's your infinite game, right? Like a purpose-driven life. I mean, I'm gonna stick to that one. I'm calling that one. All right, we're all right. Well, thanks everyone for joining us, and we will see you all on Monday.
So sounds good. Good night.
That was fun as always, but I'm gonna go to bed because I literally am. This whatever is going on, like it just. I need sleep. I need a lot of sleep. Awesome, man. Well, good talking. We'll see you on Monday, and have a great weekend.
You too.
Hey, wait. Actually, before you jump, so I'm in Atlanta next Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday for our regional sales kickoff.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know when I'll. I mean, I don't know what I know my days are going to be packed. So I certainly can't sneak away like during the day to go do this stuff, because I'll be around like our whole team. At night, I don't know what our nighttime agendas are going to be, just given that I'm with our whole entire team. Like, it's the entire like sales organization for North America and marketing and everything coming together. So I'm assuming we'll probably have to go to some stupid fucking dinners and schmooze the people and all this other
just beaver on purpose.
No, I'm gonna have a good time. I don't want to forget our stuff, because this is part of beavering on purpose. If you're cool with it, can we just be really flexible? Or maybe we do Thursday and Friday next week instead, and Wednesday. I should be back Wednesday night. I could do Wednesday, Thursday, Friday next week, and we can just say Monday and Tuesday, just take it off and not even worry, kind of thing. Is that better?
Yeah, sounds good.
All right, cool. Awesome. All right, see you.
All right, see you. Bye.
Bye.